Hi there, my name is Marcos from the CMT team, and I'm going to show you a demo of our project which helps to live migrate containers between different capable hosts. We decided to make this project based on Run C because Docker still doesn't have the capabilities to make checkpoint and restore properly. But eventually, when that happens, it will be fairly easy to replace it and make CMT work on top of Docker. Okay, as you can see on the left pane, we are in my computer where I have the CMT tool installed, which basically allows me to do two tasks, migration and validation. We're going to start with validation first. It's also important to notice that I have Creo and Run C installed in my computer as well, which are necessary binaries to make live migration happen. What I would like to know now is if the host in my right has also the same capabilities in order to allow me to automatically migrate containers between one machine and another one. To check this, I'm going to run a CMT validate command. I'm going to specify a source path, which is going to be a local path because we want to check against our computer. We're going to specify also a destination path, which is going to be a remote path of the machine on our right. As you can see, we're getting an error saying that Creo doesn't exist on a remote host. So we're going to actually validate that. Okay, as you can see, in fact, it doesn't exist. The binary doesn't exist. So we couldn't be able to make migration if we can't fix these issues. So I'm going to actually go into Creo, I'm going to compile it, and I'm going to install it. Okay, now that we have Creo installed in the remote host, we're going to run the validations again. And now we're getting an error saying that the versions of Creo do not match between the target and the remote host. So why is this? The reason for this is because we had to fork Creo in order to implement some functionalities that were missing for the automation. So to fix this, I'm going to compile our own patched version of Creo, which includes some fixes. And we're going to install this version to see if this works now. Okay, if I run the validations again, I'm going to get a validation succeeded, which means that we are in a situation where we can actually migrate containers between the target and the host. For this part of the demo, we're going to see that we are in my computer on the left, and we have two remote hosts on the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to validate if migration is possible between all these hosts. So as you can see, as you saw in the example before, we can run a CMT validate command and specify the source destination host as my computer, and we're going to also specify the destination host as one of these computers on the right. We're going to try with the one at the top right first. So we see that we are in place in order to make validation with that computer. So we're going to run the same validation, but against the computer which is at the bottom. Okay, seems like if I try to migrate a container between my host and any of these two computers, things are going to work. But what about migrating containers between these two hosts? CMT also allows you to specify two remote hosts in the validation. What it will do underneath is it will connect to the both hosts, and it will make a proxy and it will ask them if they have the same capabilities in order to make checkpoint and restore possible. So if I specify the source IP of one of those hosts and then I specify the destination IP of another one, we're going to see that CMT will tell us that they can also migrate containers between themselves. To show you this, we're going to run a Redis container here in this computer using Run C. And we're going to connect to it, and we're going to specify some keys to show you that the data is being migrated with the container itself. So there we have our key. And now, showing as the same example that I did before, you can just use CMT migrate by specifying the source host and a destination host as two remote paths where we want our container to be migrated to. One thing to notice here is that you also need to specify the absolute working directory of your containers in both destination and source, because CMT uses it in order to copy all the metadata needed for the migration. So we're going to specify it here for both, and we're going to see what happens. So we see that CMT finished successfully, and it took a total downtime of 400 milliseconds. It also performs some validations and pre-checks in order to see that everything is working properly. So if we go to the target host and we try to see if Redis is working there, we should be able to connect, as you can see. And if we list the keys and get the key data, then everything is in place. So what we are trying to do now is we will try to migrate back this container to its source host, which will be fairly simple, because we can just run the migrate command again, and we only need to switch the destination and source parameters. So we will try to do this and see what happens. There we go. So we see that the migration is successful again. We also have a small downtime, and if we go to the source computer, to the original source computer, and we try to connect to the Redis server, we can see it's back online and it has all the information needed here. So we're going to try one last thing. As you saw with the validations, we can also move containers locally, right? So what we will try to do is we will move the container from the remote host to our computer. And CMT allows you to specify either remote or local paths in the migrate command as well. So in order to do this, we're going to specify the source host here as a computer which has a container now. And again, we're going to specify the full path as we saw before, which is this one. There we go. And the full path is again home Ubuntu Redis. And for the destination host, instead of specifying a remote path, we're just going to specify that it's locally to the directory where we're starting. As you can see, CMT actually copied or moved the container from the source host, and now if we check in our computer, we have the same Redis server which was in the remote host running, and we can actually see that the data is still there. One last feature that I would like to show you is the ability to make a pre-dump of an image, which is something that Creo recently added. And in order to implement it, we had to fork runc and implement it ourselves. So if you check the runc command, I'm going to show you the checkpoint parameters. Here we go again. You can see that now we have the pre-dump flag as well as the previous images there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move back the original container that we have running on this computer. As you can see, we still have connection to our Redis container. I'm going to move it back to its original computer, but this time, instead of doing a regular dump, I'm just going to do a pre-dump. So in order to do this, you need to do CMT migrate. I'm going to use the source as my computer as before. The destination is going to be again the target computer with the absolute path of the container. And this time I'm going to add the pre-dump flag into CMT. As you can see, it performs a pre-dump, it prepares the pre-dump, and then it does the actual restoration. So to conclude our demo, if I go to this computer, I see Redis is running and information is still there. I'm going to upload all the information to the GitHub repo. CMT also has some other features as well as some extra validations that are very helpful for this whole process. And we also have some features, some cool features that we would like to implement in the future. So I invite you to check the GitHub repo, check out the README file, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you very much.